And one of the things that came up was the impact that this work, that these experiences, that even these stories that are being shared have on our bodies physically, how they elicit visceral responses, how trauma oftentimes lives in our very bones, in our blood. And so we wanted to create space to be able to receive some tools to help us to deal with the ways in which trauma and stigma show up in our bodies. And so we have enlisted the expertise of Natalie Balat, who is a psychotherapist here in the New Orleans area who specializes in somatic therapy. And she is going to lead us for the next 30 minutes or so through some practices that will help us to be more in tune with our bodies, the trauma that they potentially carry, and how we can release that trauma so that we can move forward in this work together in a more healthy state. Please help me in welcoming Natalie.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you for having me here. It really is an honor. And my voice is a little shaky because y'all just burst my heart just wide open. I mean, I was really feeling your stories and deeply touched, almost to tears. But I'm not gonna do that here. But I just want to say thank you. And I am a therapist, so, work in my little office. And I am a co-conspirator. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And my work is pretty quiet. So listening to your stories, I felt the joy, the pain, the range. It just touched every part of me. So I work with folks just like any other therapist, and they specifically want to work through the trauma. And I heard Ulysses mention tools. Tools fix. We're not people to be fixed. We are not to be fixed. That's right. And so a lot of my work is centered around undoing these narratives and listening to stories. But as a somatic therapist, I'm listening to the deeper story. What's showing up in their nervous system? And what's showing up in mine in response? And when I say what's showing up in the nervous system, what's happening in the body when they're telling their story? What's the deeper story there? Is there a tapping foot? Eyes roaming around, looking for an exit? Maybe not many words. So as I'm tracking and listening to the story, but also listening to the deeper story, I'm also tracking what's happening in me. And that's what I invite everyone here to do when you're sitting with someone. What is your response? Sometimes I'll notice my shoulders do this, and I'm in video. I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm constantly checking myself. What's happening in me? Where are my unconscious biases, and how are they showing up? And how can I be curious so that I can do the deeper work to be here? So I'm tracking the person I'm sitting with. I'm tracking myself. And I'm tracking this relationship. What is happening in the relationship? How are we? And all of you, in some capacity, some way, shape, or form, you're doing it. Different language, different context, but you're doing that. And I invite you that is healing work. Because in that work, we start to feel things in our bodies. And when we feel things in our bodies, we can heal. We can get something mobilized that needs to take action. Maybe grieve the losses a lot of work around this is grieving the losses of what didn't happen. Some people didn't have their grandmothers or parents. Some of us are born into a family, a home, a community, a country that says you don't belong. Something's wrong with you. You're bad. And so we're listening for these themes, and this is what we want to undo. So not only as a therapist, but anyone who works with folks, how can you help undo that narrative? It's a real way of being seen. So we want to do some somatic exercises and maybe explore our own nervous systems. And I want to say this. A lot of times with mental health professionals, and I'm sure this happens in the faith-based community, like when I read Ulysses' website, I was like, ooh, faith. Like I almost braced. I braced because I help people who are traumatized by their pastors, their ministers, and their communities. So I'm doubly excited to be here for that cause. As a mental health professional, we have the same thing. In the South, we still have conversion therapy. It's still legal. It's so damaging. So I'm prefacing with that to say, let's just be curious. Let's just be curious. When I am going to give some prompts or directives, I want you to notice, do I want to do that or not? I want you to feel your own choice. If you do it, great, be curious. If you don't, great, be curious. I just want you to feel your choice. So, erase that I'm a therapist. Maybe I'm a game show host. I don't know if I could be as sassy, but or, a tour guide. We're going to take a tour of your own nervous system, right? And remember, our nervous system, it works on our behalf. We're created, our brain and body is created to sustain itself, to survive. And so it's all unconscious. We don't have to think about breathing. We just breathe. We don't have to think about our heart. It just beats. And so we're going to explore that a little bit. And again, these prompts, these directives, it's all invitational, so you can accept or decline. So we're going to play a game of freeze. Don't move a muscle. Maybe allow your eyes to move around in their sockets. Notice your shoulders. Any muscles that might be bracing. Notice your breath. Are you holding it? Is it shallow? Are some parts holding themselves up? Just notice. And we're going to come out of that freeze, but we're going to do it slowly and invite you to just wiggle your toes. Just feel your feet in your shoes and your fingers. And maybe just turning your head right or left. Just slowly, great, yeah. Just do so slowly and notice where your eyes go. And maybe you see a friendly face, a smile, and notice how that feels. And maybe there's an impulse to move in a certain way, either to stretch or to move. And notice that inhale, right? Coming back into the body. Maybe raising your arms on other sides, just a little bit, just enough to feel your arms, feeling your feet on the ground, feeling that gravity. There's gravity here. Feeling your butt in the chair, feeling the support, feeling your back and spine. And just notice, what is that like? Yeah. I see some stretching, maybe some yawning. Yeah. A little weird. Right? Like, what is this? This happens all the time in different ways that we're not even aware of. You ever have somebody cut you off in traffic and you brace? And then you know you're safe and then you go. So there's an activation, the freeze that we kind of played around with, and a deactivation. And this is anyone, any being with a nervous system. This is our survival system. This is what sustains us. This is what helps us perceive safety from danger. But what if I grow up in a world where I'm perceived as dangerous or bad? Maybe everywhere I look is not safe. And the switch never turns off. So you'll hear stories. You'll go, why are they doing that again? They knew not to do that. Or they keep going in the same loops. And it's just stuck. We get stuck. When we experience trauma, and trauma is not the event, but it's what happens inside of us when in response to the event. It's what happens inside of us. It's that experience that stays with us. So, I'm curious if anyone would like to share what their experience was like just now, just kind of going into that activation, deactivation, anything you're curious about or notice.
So I've noticed that when I'm asked to intentionally engage my body. Yeah, no, that's good. I've noticed that when I'm asked to intentionally engage my body, I naturally want to stretch. And a part of that is just my age now. But in stretching, I also feel relief. And I think that there's a message there around even the work that we do and how it's important for us to stretch in the work that we do because stretching provides comfort and relief.
I love that. Yeah, your body knows what to do. Your body is going to have an impulse to do something. Sometimes it's a impulse to protect itself, and it's not working in our favor. But for the most part, I go into bracing. I want to stretch. I want to get out. I love that. Anyone else or curious?
So I think for me, I experience resistance. I'm not sure if if you really know what I mean. And so when people ask me oftentimes to do something on command or on demand, I experience resistance. And it's because what you said, so much trauma is stored in the body. And I'm very clear of that and very aware of that. So it's difficult. And even though I feel in a safe space, my body still doesn't believe in no safety. And so it's difficult to do it on command. So that's one of the things that I often notice. But I'm also a therapist, so I'm very intentional about it. So I love this.
I know for me, the initial freeze, everything stopped. And then I breathe. And when you freeze, you don't have to stop breathing. And I think that's powerful in the work that we're doing because even in everything that we're going through, we can still just breathe.
So I'll admit I have a really hard time with exercises like this. Um, and I think it stems from the fact that I come from a place where I'm not really keen on tapping into my body. And it's only been over the past few years, literally, that I've started to understand my body can be used as a resource for understanding how to approach the world and the decision making and just how to process what I'm dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So I just wanted to say that to recognize like I don't know if I'm the only one that has a hard time doing that, but it's like just coming into consciousness that my body has a role in this and it's not just a mental it's not just a rationale because that's the way I feel like I've been cultured for a long time. It's just use your rationale, use your brain, like research. And it's only been recently that my body has come into the picture as an equal sort of positioning in my decision making.
I didn't know how tense I was until we started the exercise. And so, given the topic, it thinking about the experiences or the lived experience of people who, men and women who are transgender, having to operate in a world where you are constantly having to be on guard and ready, it just reiterated to me, given this conversation today, just how that can be not good for the body. And how, I mean, because cortisone is only supposed to be used for moments, but to always be tense, not because you want to be tense, but because of the the experiences or the people or the environment that you live in, it's toxic. And so it reiterated to me the importance of seeing things from other people's perspective, in particular, given today's conversation, transgender individuals' perspectives.
I actually thank you for saying that. I live on guard. It doesn't matter where I'm at. It doesn't matter the race of the people, the sex of the people. It doesn't matter what it is because I feel like as trans folks, we can't trust anybody. And I think that we go into every room, whether it's a room that presents itself to be safe or loving or affirming or familial, with the understanding that there's someone in here who likely wants to act on their capacity to hurt me. Um, I hold a lot of stress in my jaw, so much so that I get Botox every 5 months because I grind my teeth so bad from holding on to the trauma of not saying the things, not doing the things, not. And it wasn't until I saw an Instagram post that literally said, stop scrolling, unclench your jaw, take your tongue off the roof of your mouth, and relax your shoulders. And reading those words and realizing that at that moment I was doing all of those things by myself. There was nobody there that I needed to be on guard with. But because my body was so used to always being ready to like, all right, we might have to leave, we might have to fight. We have like there's a thing. Exercises like this, like I'm standing outside and I'm like listening and trying to follow along. it's tough because even in moments where everybody is supposed to be like, I'm wondering where the next attack is going to come from, which makes stuff like this really hard. And so I thank you for acknowledging that.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, it, that switch, it's on. And no matter how safe the people around you seem, are, it doesn't just turn off. And so I love the theme of Southern Joy and self-care. There's an Audre Lorde quote around this in an old book, that self-care is not self-indulgence. It's self-preservation, an act of political warfare. That is so still relevant now and so important. And joy is the center of self-care, real self-care. So I want to end with a little bit of joy and feeling that in our bodies and our systems. Joy and happiness are really vulnerable emotions because at any moment it could be taken away. So we're going to do a somatic elicitation. And I invite you, and again, it's an invitation. I invite you to imagine someone, a person, an animal, anyone, God, someone that really loves you. And you can close your eyes for this if you want, but you can also keep your eyes open. And I want you to imagine details about this person or the energy of this entity, or if it's an animal, right? Imagine all the details, the colors, maybe the embrace that you feel from that. Notice the temperature in your body. And I'll invite you to go into your heart area and notice whatever's showing up there. Is it warm or cool? Is it open? And maybe even notice what that feels like in your entire being, that there is this whole body from your toes to the top of your head, feeling any feelings, sensations. Maybe even you notice colors or textures. And before I invite you back into this space, I want you to imagine that you're going to take this with you. And maybe you can say this to yourself: may every cell in my being remember this moment. And as I invite you to come back when you're ready, I invite you to just, we call it reorienting, reorient to safety. We're going to reorient. We're going to allow our nervous systems to take in this collective space. And just turning your head and neck, right? And your eyes. Again, it's an invitation. See if you can find a friendly face. Yeah. Notice what that's like. So from coming from your own individual self to this collective here, maybe feeling the support of each other. Yeah. Notice what that's like. I'm trying to make sure we have time. Would anyone like to share their experience? Or maybe just be in the resonance. I always say, trauma takes away time and space, takes away choice. So what if we just give ourselves time? Yeah, allowing the experience to be what it is. Doesn't have to be a certain kind of way. We're meeting ourselves where we're at. And that's self-love. And the grief is so valid when we touch into those places. Can you be with that grief? Resmaa Menakem, he's a Somatic abolitionist. And he refers to clean pain and dirty pain. Can we feel that clean pain? There's no bypass to that. That's what fuels us. That's what gives us joy on the other side. I feel like we need to have a dance party or something. We're hardwired to dance. We're hardwired to connect, but we're definitely hardwired to dance. So maybe even imagine maybe your favorite dance song. Whatever that is. And notice how that feels in your body. Is there a little movement? And I'll actually invite you to do this. So imagine your favorite dance song, whatever that is. Tune it in. And you feel it in your body. And we're doing this together, next to each other. And maybe the movement gets bigger. A head sway. Right? Or hum. When I can't seem to self-regulate, I'll just You want to do that with me? You could go low to high. High to low. Notice. Like it, dislike it, neutral. Right? You might hate it. It might stir something up. Yeah. I feel like I'm in session with a group of people that I'm just loving. It is about acceptance and affirming. That's where the love is. That's where the healing is. And I really appreciate you having me here and hearing your stories. I've learned so much just in the little bit of time that I've been here today. And I hope for you, if this could plant a seed for your own curiosity of coming back to this body in any way that feels safe for you. So whatever you find that brings you back to your body, whether it's singing or being in community, doing something joyful, I invite you the next time you do that to notice what it feels like in your body. And I thank you very much.